Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 2 of the Manufacturer Series exhibition season. Let's get this started. Your turning point is at the 50-meter sign that is on the left. Bring yourself all the way to the inside of the turn without turning too much and stay on full throttle if possible. Stay on the right side of the track and brake just before you reach the 150-meter mark. You'll be braking hard for a while. Start to turn in just after you pass the 50-meter mark. You want to try to take advantage of the track limits without getting 3 or more wheels onto the yellow curbs. Do a little throttle control and try to get your car quickly set up for the exit of the chicane so you can get on the throttle as soon as possible. Now brake just as you pass the 50-meter mark, slowly ease off of the brakes, nice and patient with your throttle input. Then brake just before you reach the 50-meter mark. In case that sign's knocked out, brake before the shadows that are on the rails on the right. Bring yourself to the inside of the track, nice and careful out of the turn, and try not to get too much into the green area as that will affect your exit. That also applies to the turn before it. Bring yourself to the right side of the track, and there are multiple braking points you can use. So just after the digital flag that is on the right, or just as you reach the path that is on the right. Brake hard for a while, take advantage of the track limits, lift off of the throttle for a bit so you can get yourself set up for the second half of those series of turns. Then you want to bring yourself to the left side of the track, just take your time doing it. And your final braking point is going to be the 100-meter mark. Brake hard for a short while. Slowly ease off of the brakes as you turn in. Try to stay towards the inside of the turn. Wait until the curb on the right ends before you start to fully accelerate. Depending on the car, you might have to ease in the throttle a bit, but other than that, you are good to go. Let's go ahead and talk about the strategies. So for the qualifying session, you only have 5 minutes to try to get a good qualifying time. This will give you 2 chances to try to get the best time possible. 3 if you are extremely lucky and somehow get out right away and happen to be at the very front of the pit lane. But other than that, just assume you only have 2 chances to get a good time. And you also want to be careful as you go through here during your out lap and your qualifying laps, as you want to make sure you don't get a penalty because that will really screw things up. Also, make sure you warm up your tires as you're on racing hard tires, so your tires will be a little cold. And because we are at Monza and because this is the No Chicane variation, slipstream is pretty much mandatory. So you want to make sure that you are within 3/4 of a second behind someone so you can take advantage of the slipstream. And you'll notice this as you go through the main straight. Your car will accelerate faster, you'll reach higher speeds compared to not being under the slipstream. And when you approach the first chicane, well in this case the first chicane, you want to make sure that you brake a little earlier because you're going a heck of a lot faster. You want to make sure that you, 1, don't punt the car ahead of you, and 2, end up bidding your own lap, which will cost you quite a few positions. So you want to make sure that you nail every single turn, know when to brake when you're under the slipstream and when you're not under the slipstream. And yeah, so you only have 2 chances to try to get a good qualifying time, so you better make them count. And before we go to the race strategies, if there's one turn that you want to make sure that you have it nailed down, it's going to be the chicane. And I say that because in my experience, that chicane pretty much determines the fate of your entire lap. If you get a poor exit or just end up going through that chicane poorly, then your lap time is not going to be that great. But if you are able to nail it down, then that can set you up to get a really good lap time because the other turns that follow along are not too hard. The last turn is a little tricky, but it's not as hard as the chicane. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because I think this chicane is crucial to getting a good lap time. And speaking of the chicane, make sure you brake early, especially as you have cold tires towards the start of the race. And if you're under the slipstream, brake early because you want to make sure that you're not the one that punts the car ahead of you and they get really mad at you or that you bin it. Just try to be careful. And speaking of the slipstream, that is going to play a key role in this race, so you pretty much need to be under the slipstream at all times. So as you see here, second place is not too far behind, so he's going to be getting the slipstream because he's less than 3/4 of a second behind me. But third place and on, they're more than a second behind us, so we basically don't have to worry about them. And you also want to try to work together, don't fight it out too much, as you also just want to try to get the heck away from everyone. Second place and I just want to get away from third place and so on, so it'll eventually become just a 2-car battle, and we're just going to be slingshotting off of each other, just trying to get away from everyone else so we can just have some fun with him and I, pretty basically. But all that awkwardness aside, there are plenty of places to do some overtakes, so the main straight is pretty much the best place to do an overtake. The straight that is coming up in one turn is another good place to get an overtake, and then you have the back straight that is also another good place to try to get an overtake. You just want to make sure that you get a good exit, have a little bit of speed, stay under the slipstream, and you should be able to slingshot past him if you can. There's also going to be times where you might think, oh hey, this is not the right time to try to overtake someone because that could lead to a long battle, and if there's anyone in front of you, they're going to get away, and if there's anyone behind you, they're going to catch up. So that's something that you kind of need to think about as you go through this race, is trying to work with those around you, just trying to take advantage of the slipstream, and basically just trying to keep up with the pack. And I know I haven't mentioned much about the tires in the field up to this point, so I'll quickly talk about that. The fuel is at ×1, so you don't have to worry about that, but the tire multiplier is at ×6. And yes, you are on the racing hard tires, so they will last a while, but the tire wear will slowly start to creep in towards the end of the race. So there is a little bit of tire management that you want to do, especially if your car is not good on tire saving. You just want to try to make sure that at the end of the race, you still have enough grip to be able to make a right turn. Basically, this race is a no-stop race. So if you see the dot that is just above the shift bar, that is your steering, and you want to try to make sure that it's not going all the way to one side of that shift bar for too long. Otherwise, you're probably scrubbing your tires, and that will increase the tire wear rate. The dirty air, so the slipstream from the cars in front of you, will also contribute to this, especially as you go through the first turn, since that is a pretty high-speed turn. Your car will understeer a bit, and you might have to lift off a throttle just a little bit to make sure that you stay on track, and just try not to scrub your tires. And once again, it'll come down to how your driving style is and how your own car is when it comes to the tires. In the case of the Viper, the car got a little understeer towards the end of the race, but other than that, it wasn't much of a problem for me. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this guide. Once again, this is a no-stop race. Just keep an eye on your left tires, since those tires will be taking a beating. Stay under the slipstream at all times, and brake earlier if you're under the slipstream, and just try to make sure you don't get track penalties, especially from the chicane. But that's all from me. I also want to thank you all for the crazy awesome support, as we recently just went over 9,000 subscribers. So that's really awesome, and can't wait to hit 10,000 with y'all. So that's all from me. I'm going to sign off now. So this is Mr. CA. Try not to get punted, and I'll see you in the next video.